Welcome to TERRA's third Thursday video podcast for the month of November 2025. Today, we will be having another strategic discussion designed to help your organization maximize your e-scrap and ITAD operations. I am your host, Stephen Napoli, President of TERRA, the Electronics Reuse and Recycling Alliance. For our regular consumers of these sessions, you know that we strive to be brief and to the point while providing you with information that you can use to enhance your knowledge, operations, and bottom line. As a reminder, all of our previous content is available on our website, jointerra.org. But before we get started, I wanted to acknowledge our new and renewing members since our last session. These organizations include Sadov E-Cycling and Data Destruction, New Tech Corporate Electronics Recycling, Midwest Recycling Center, MRC, Thanks for Being Green, C2, CompuCycle, and our new member, Electronics Bazaar, as well as allied members Recycle Global Exchange, RGX, and the Reverse Logistics Association. In today's session, we will break from tradition, and I will be both your host and presenter. This session, titled Electrify Your Brand, is a program that I've wanted to do for some time. In today's podcast, I will discuss how your organization can differentiate itself and create a unique and valuable position in a crowded industry driven by compliance and certification. I hope you enjoy. Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of TERRA's Third Thursday podcast. Again, today we're going to be doing something we haven't done in a while, which is your host to just be your host. Typically, I always have a guest and a guest host and a guest presenter, but we're going to be doing a session today that is really close to my heart, something that I've got some expertise in, and really an episode that I've been thinking about and wanting to do for some time, for many years. Just a few weeks ago at the eScrap conference, I was invited to be one of the speakers, and on one of the Monday morning sessions, I did this particular session on branding, on how to electrify your brand. A lot of our members, a lot of the people that are in this space, certified companies and others, are really, entrepreneurial, started small businesses and have built, strong business out of relationships and tough sales. But a lot of folks just have not been exposed to a lot of marketing, a lot of branding, a lot of positioning. And those are the kind of terms that I want to talk about today and really discuss the power of building your own brand and, making an identity for yourself in a pretty crowded marketplace. So let's kind of dive right into it. Give me a moment here to share my screen. And again, this is the same presentation, more or less, that I gave to our folks at the eScrap conference just a couple weeks ago. So let's make sure we're sharing the proper screen. There we go. Hopefully you can see me still up in the corner there. But, there are going to be some things in this session that are related to like handouts that I gave out during my presentation, but it's kind of like homework for you guys to do. And at the end, you're going to see like a QR code, but you can always, of course, email me, contact me through LinkedIn, call me, whatever, and I'll make sure I get these handouts to you in a way that you can use and explore with your team. So again, today we're going to be talking about all things branding, electrifying your brand, and we're going to get started. So first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about me. Many of you folks I've got to know over the years, some not as well as I would like, but we've now been doing TERRA for 6 years. Actually, the 2019 eScrap conference was the first time that I really met anybody in this industry. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself. Of course, we started this back in basically September of 2019, and in earnest, we had one member at that time. We've now grown to over 130 participating facilities in 11 countries. So this is a very strong network. Obviously, when you've got business all around the globe, all around the country, looking for white glove partners, looking for downstream partners, looking for potentially new business friends in our industry, that's what TERRA's for. Ask me, contact us, get the membership directory, start reaching out to your fellow members. This is a really strong group, and I think you'll find the more you invest in it, the more you're going to get out. So My background before I got involved with TERRA was really in sales and marketing and building brands. I worked for many years in the advertising business, working in advertising agencies, building, advertising and marketing campaigns for both business to business and business to consumer brands. And, that's kind of where I cut my teeth. So I do have a little bit of experience in some of this that I'm sharing with you today. I'm here in Nashville, so you'll see here these are some of the brands that I work specifically in the Nashville market. I work for one of the largest agencies in the Southeast, just happens to be located here in Nashville. Helped do a lot of branding and rebranding for many of these companies. A.O. Smith, big water heater company, Indy Racing League, LP Building Products, who used to be the namesake of our stadium for the Tennessee Titans. Of course, the Tennessee Titans, the sports teams I worked on. So I've had a pretty broad experience as it relates to, building communications and building brands in different markets and different sectors. But today, for you all, the challenge is, in a crowded industry driven by compliance and certifications, how do you stand out? There is a lot of room in this marketplace to be unique, to be different. And the challenge really is for you to find it and what makes sense for you and your business. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how to identify that and then how to take advantage of it. So I hope my promise for you by the end of this podcast is that, you will leave with a clear understanding of what a brand is and specifically what a brand isn't, and, provide you some tools to get started to really start helping you define yours. So let's start out with first, what a brand is not. Unfortunately, people get confused. People think of a brand as the logo. I just presented brands as logos there just a moment ago. That was just because a brand is something that you recognize, right? That's a symbol of the company. It should, hopefully good logos at a glance, you'll recognize who they are, what organizations they represent. You might even get a feeling of what that organization is about just by the look of their service mark. So, a great logo is obviously an important part of branding, but it's not a brand. The next thing people confuse is that, a brand is a tagline or that jingle that ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Everybody recognizes that as McDonald's, and it's been that for almost 25 years. People forget about that. For me, being a little bit of a gray in the hair, a little old timer, I still remember some of the other older icons that you used to see with McDonald's. You haven't seen Ronald McDonald in years, but that tag, that jingle, is something that they've been doing now for a quarter century. But that's not a brand either. That's just, again, it is a mechanism for them to entice an emotion in you, their consumer, and try to get you to think of them in a positive place in your mind. So here are some ones that obviously a lot of you folks have seen over the years. Of course, we've got ours in there. Certification matters, but think how iconic some of these are. Breakfast of Champions has been around for over 50 years. Because you're worth it. L'Oreal, for our females in the audience today. Very impactful a tagline can be, but it too is not a brand. And then, the third thing is that a brand certainly is not a guarantee. I've got a clip here. I might have to do some creative editing to make sure that it works on this format for you guys to all hear it, but I'm going to run through it real quick. Something that always has, made me laugh, but illustrates the point pretty well, is a clip here from the great movie Tommy Boy. Because basically what it's boiled down to is, Tommy will explain, guarantees are essentially gimmicks.
Let's think about this for a sec, Ted. Why would somebody put a guarantee on a box? Very interesting.
Go on, I'm listening.
Here's the way I see it, Ted. Guy puts a fancy guarantee in a box because he wants you to feel all warm and toasty inside.
Yeah, makes a man feel good.
Of course it does. Why shouldn't it? You figure you put that little box under your pillow at night, the guarantee fairy might come by and leave a quarter. Am I right, Ted?
What's your point?
The point is, how do you know the fairy isn't a crazy glue sniffer? Building model airplanes, says the little fairy. Well, we're not buying it. He sneaks into your house once, that's all it takes. Next thing you know, there's money missing off the dresser and your daughter's knocked up. I've seen it 100 times.
But why do they put a guarantee on the box then?
Because they know all they sold you was a guaranteed piece of shit. That's all it is, isn't it? Hey, if you want me to take a dump in a box and mark it guaranteed, I will. I got spare time. But for now, for your customer's sake, for your daughter's sake, you might want to think about buying a quality product from me.
Okay, I'll buy from you.
Oh, that's... What?
Yes, so like Tommy Boy, he doesn't get tricked by gimmicks. Make sure that your brand is really something that is authentic. So we just talked a little bit about what a brand is not. So what is a brand then? So I've heard said, and I prayed at the altar of this for many years, is that a brand was a promise, that it was, kind of that guarantee that it was going to be an experience that your organization was going to deliver to the customer. And to a certain extent, that still is part of it. You want to be able to have, consistency with what you're delivering to your customers on a daily basis. The way your truck sounds when you pull into a customer's parking lot, that impacts your brand. If you're out there talking about being a high quality, high touch, white glove experience, and your truck rolls in looking like it's just been in a wreck, it sounds like it's been in a wreck, and your driver is wearing oil stained clothing, that's going to impact on what people perceive as your brand value. So all those little touch points, the way that your reception person answers the phone, the way that your sales team approaches and starts to attempt to make and set appointments. What's their tone? What's their manner? What are they saying? Can everybody in your organization kind of give a quick 30-second elevator pitch as to what your business is and what you do and why it's important and what makes you unique? If they can't, you've got some work to do. And that's where we're going to get started today, is kind of defining that. So ultimately then, if a brand is all those things, a brand encompasses all those, your tagline perhaps, your logo, your website, your sales reps, everybody that touches, your customers, all in your prospects, what are they ultimately delivering? What are they ultimately putting in that mind of your customer, of your prospect? So what you want to do is you want to be thinking about the result. That's what a brand is. A brand is a collection of all of those different little interactions. It's the gut feeling created by the accumulated results of all the interactions of all your team members, of all of the things you put out in the media with your customers and prospects from your organization. So that's a pretty big thing, right? I mean, that's everything that your brand touches is going to be impacting your brand. So this is a process that has to be part of your, not maybe daily operations, but at least your monthly, weekly operations. You need to be thinking about, in terms of when you're bringing in new employees, how you're training them. In addition to doing their job, making sure that they learn things the way you want them to do it, the way their language becomes the language that you want to use to your prospects and customers. So, you've got to be thinking about how you live your brand within your four walls all the time. It's not something that just lives on your website. It's not a color scheme. It's much more than that. It's in your DNA. And when you start to do that, when you start to really differentiate yourself in the marketplace versus your competition, that's when you start finding results. Now, there are a lot of places in the market space that you can look for to have ownership of. And a lot of different things that you can say about your company that can be true. You can be price conscious while also being, very high touch and white glove. But it's, what do you want that result to be? Do you want them to think of you as being price conscious, or do you want them to think of you as being comprehensive and quality driven? Again, no wrong answer. Depends on what your organizational goals are. Depends on what your market is. Things can be different from Nashville to Cleveland to Los Angeles. So all those things kind of come into play when you're thinking about where it is in the marketplace you want to stand out. So really, ultimately, what you're doing is you're not building a brand, you're guiding it. Because whether you do these processes or not, people out there already have an idea of what they think you are. You already have a brand. Whether you want to work on it or not, you've got a place that you're already starting. There is a buzz in the marketplace about who you are and what you do and how you do it, about your employees, about the way you treat your customers, the kind of customers you go after. Whatever it happens to be that defines you, there is already a perception of that. So you've got to start guiding it, guiding that perception to the place that's going to make you and your organization the most successful. So that starts at first recognizing that this is a process that you have to start to take ownership of. So that goes into you starting to formulate a plan. That's, who in the organization is going to be involved in this from a high level, who's going to help, distribute it down to, everybody. What customers are you going to talk to? What prospects do you want to talk to in terms of, getting their feedback about what their perceptions of you are. Talk to your top 10 customers for sure. You don't have to sit there and put out a questionnaire to 500,000 people, but it's important to get some third party outside perspectives, get the perspectives of your employees. That's simple. Start to formulate, questionnaires and ways to get feedback into your, decision team as to how you want to then start implementing actions that have an impact on your perception, on your brand. So as part of that, your plan is, building that network of information, people that are going to be responsible for processing it, and then, action plans to ultimately lead you to your destination, to get you to the place that you want. Again, your customers, your prospects, your employees, your stakeholders, everybody that has a touch point to your organization, to have that consistent feeling about who you are and what you're about. So as we've been talking about, a lot of things then impact your brand. Your employees, your customers, your competitors, the technology you have or don't have, your geography, the state of the economy, tariffs, things that are definitely outside your control. All of these things simultaneously just impacting your brand, because you don't know who's going to, receive what, hear what about who you are, and then get a different, impression about what you are than you want them to be. I also use this example many times. Think about, again, McDonald's. Is your perception of McDonald's the same as it was when you were a kid? Same brand. It's very different. Children have a much very different opinion of what McDonald's is than adults do. And, that's part of their, their structure. That's part of what they're communicating to. Their brand can be, because they're McDonald's, big enough to accommodate that large of a gap between perceptions between the young and old. Our business here in the space that we occupy is a little bit more narrow. It's a lot easier to define than, something as large as McDonald's. Also a lot less expensive and time consuming to do that. Because boiled down, an organization like McDonald's, you're either one of two things. You're either a marketing organization or you're a sales organization. A company like Coca-Cola, like McDonald's, they're marketing organizations. Your business, you're in sales. So you have a need to define yourself a little bit more focused, and your resources are such that really that's all you can do is to hope to try to claim a small corner of the market for yourself, something that you can own, something that differentiates you, and something that's profitable. So let's get that part started. The basics are these. As you saw in that previous slide, a lot of things impacting your brand. But to get things started, to start putting you along that guide path towards where you want your destination to be, this is the place to start. Start thinking about these three individual areas. What is your organization's vision? That's pretty simple. Who it is, who you are, and why you're doing it, right? Your position. We talked a little bit about this. Are you comprehensive? Are you niche? Are you quality? Are you more price conscious? These kind of ideas are somewhat opposed. Where is it along that we'll show this brand map here in a moment where you fit in that conversation. And then your persona. What is that kind of image of you, who you are? And a lot of people do this kind of exercise. It's what's the language that you use to describe yourself, and what is the language you want others to use to describe you. So that's kind of your persona. You're going to be talking about your overall vision as an organization, where you fit in the marketplace is your position, and what you want people to say about you is your persona. Those are the three key areas to get you started. And since most of you are already existing businesses, we're going to start with position. A vision is, where TERRA started 6 years ago. We were an idea. So we had to make sure that our vision was clear before we started thinking about, where in the marketplace we fit or what our persona was actually going to be. We had to make sure we had a reason for being first. But as an existing organization, as an existing brand, somebody who's been now in the business for several years, your organization should, I would recommend, start at thinking about your position. So what does that look like? This is that position map that I mentioned. You've heard me say some of these words thus far in the podcast. Traditional, innovative, price conscious, quality. As you can see from one side of the map to the other, they're kind of, the opposites. Established versus a newcomer. Quality versus price conscious, traditional versus innovative. This is where you all are going to fit somewhere. And the key is, as you start thinking about this, the more space you want to occupy, the more it's going to cost you, the more time and investment you're going to have to make. Because if you think that you can afford to be all things to all people, that's going to take a big investment to be all things to all people. You can be price conscious and quality based at the same time, but again, what is it do you want your customers and prospects to think of you when they hang up the phone and they're making that decision about whether they're going to go work with you or somebody else? What's that end of the day bottom line thought that you want them to have? There's, again, no right answer here. There's a lot of space on this map for everybody in multiple markets. So I'm going to show you what that looks like and what that looked like for TERRA as we got started. We were an upstart. We have a bit of an unusual idea, which was, to basically at first to create a marketing co-op to try to get you all working together and out there promoting the fact that certification matters, something that can lift the entire industry. As we found, as we've grown to 130 facilities, a lot of you all are using us as a business development network, which is great. But again, that's kind of evolved. But we're still kind of live in this space where we're still niche. We're only really focused on organizations that are E-Stewards and R2 certified, still relatively a newcomer into this industry, only being 6 years old. And we want to be innovative. We're bringing programs like Done With It and Devices for Autism and the Christmas Light program with Walmart, things that are, making an impact, but also bringing a really positive spotlight on this industry and things that we can do quickly. We don't have to have, giant committees of people thinking about things and reviewing things for months on end to make a decision. If something's a good idea, we move. So this position map really makes sense for us. That reflects our values and where we want to be today. Now, what we have to look at is where do you want to be maybe 10 years from now? Because at that point, 10, 15 years, we'll be 20 years into this business. Are we still going to be niche and innovative and newcomers? Or maybe are we going to move across the brand map and be more of an established, traditional, comprehensive organization? Well, if we are, and I don't know, we may be, we better start planning where we want to be 10 years from now, today. How are we going to start to gradually move our position from one side of the map to the other if that's what's important to us? And that's a challenge you have. Where are you today on this map? Be honest with yourselves. And then where do you want to be? And then start thinking about the language and the steps that are going to take to move you to where you ultimately want to go. That's why this is a real powerful tool and why this is really the first place to start. The next then is that persona. What is it that you are talking about? What's the language you're using to talk about yourself? What is the language you want others to talk about you? Because again, whether you're out there trying to do this or not, people are talking about you and they're using the language they want instead of maybe the language you're helping guide them to use. So this is another worksheet that's going to be available to you all. Think of these key attributes basically as three adjectives. What are the three adjectives? I mean, they might be supporting, but they're going to be a little bit different that you want other organizations to think about you. It's going to be the kind of the cornerstones of your verbal and written language. Again, and off of those, you'll start finding supporting attributes. That kind of fills out the overall kind of dictionary of your brand. And again, I'll show you an example of that, of what we did with TERRA. So first, we wanted to be a complementary organization. We are not a processor. We're not certified. We don't want to be in the position of being interfering with your business. We want to help you grow yours. So as a complementary business, we want to be, of course, appreciative, respectful of what you do, and supportive of the good works that you do all across this country and all across the globe. That's really our focus from our marketing standpoint, is to be that complementary organization to what you all are doing. Proactive. I kind of mentioned this. We don't need to wait. If there's a good idea, we can jump on it. So we want to be energetic. We want to be fast, and we want to be focused. We want to be doing those things that can have an impact on helping you all get, more sunlight shined on you as organizations. And then we are an advocate. Get it. We understand and appreciate, what it is that you guys do on a daily basis, that it's not easy being certified and jump through the hoops that you guys do, and not everybody does it. So we want to be a champion of you all. We want to defend the work that you do, and we want to be engaging with, other brands, with other organizations, with other people in the marketplace to evangelize on your behalf what makes you important and why certification matters. So as you can see, real quickly here, just by putting a few words on a page, I can really start telling a story about TERRA in a way that I want you to be able to understand and communicate to other people. That's the power of going through some of these worksheets. And I'd be happy to, again, work with any of you on getting this process started within your organization. And then the last piece, again, you're an existing organization. You probably have a mission statement or a brand promise. And if you don't, you need to get one. It really just kind of ties it all together. It really just starts, defining for you internally, externally, your core values, what your reason for being, why the business was started, where it is now, where you're going, and bring people along for that journey. This is the sizzle. This was what make people get excited about what you do and who you are and why they might want to do business with you. So you got to get this right. But again, you probably are already have some sort of vision in mind, and you're living it to a certain degree. This exercise just kind of helps you tighten that up. And again, to make that a little bit more clear, this is what we have created for TERRA. Our mission statement is simple. TERRA's mission is to maximize the sustainable reuse and recycling of electronics by connecting individuals, businesses, and communities with exclusively e-stewards and R2 certified solutions providers. We want to just be a funnel for opportunities and things that are related to this industry straight to our members. That's why we started. I recognized 6 years ago that this industry had a sales and marketing problem. So building an organization that was designed first to kind of educate the marketplace and funnel opportunities to you all seemed like a natural sales and marketing solution to that problem. Again, our promise then is we're an advocate, we're an ally. Again, those words that you saw in our previous, you're starting to see here, a complementary resource, champions of best practices, supportive. You find our language in our promise. So again, get this process started. These three areas: your vision, your persona, your position. You could sit there in a 2 hour strategic session with your team members and really tighten this thing up, and then start building the process of getting it out there. But again, if you need some help, happy to help. Many of you walk through this. So the key takeaway I wanted to again reiterate that I mentioned kind of throughout this podcast here is a brand is an ongoing journey. You never are finished. In fact, some of the language that you saw in the previous slide for TERRA, we're looking at modifying. One thing is we want to do more of is, obviously engaging with potential customers, but we also want to point out and get more active in with organizations that are not doing the right thing. They have a chance. Everybody has an opportunity to work with you all. And if they choose not to, then there should be some repercussions to their brand for not choosing a sustainable solution like working with an R2 or an eSteward certified solutions provider. There are organizations like Lowe's and Walmart and others that are selling, tens of millions of holiday string lights this this Christmas season, not doing anything to recycle anything that's going to be dead at the end of the season. There are a lot of opportunities for manufacturers, for retailers to get involved and to do the right thing, for small businesses to get involved and do the right thing. And for those that are, blatantly not, we want to be an organization that points a spotlight at that too, in addition to the spotlight on the good works that you all are doing. So that's a change worth thinking about in terms of our messaging. Is that something that we're going to change the way, we present ourselves as a little bit more proactive in the way that we go after folks that aren't using your services? So again, what this is about, I've had, 6 years here of really getting to know and love this industry, the people that make it happen. I've had an opportunity here now to speak at a couple of conferences. You guys have been, with me here every month as we do our TERRA Third Thursdays. Some folks has been members of TERRA now for 6 years. Um, we have now seen, or I've now seen a good bit of this industry, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it, and where some opportunities lie. And I think this is a big one. I think especially for our members, because you all are relatively small to mid-sized businesses. A lot of you don't have anybody with marketing experience, perhaps directly on staff that is a dedicated marketing and advertising and social media person. So, but this is an opportunity that you all can get involved with internally to make your organizations better, stronger, stand out more, build your business. And I would very much like to be a part of that process. Obviously here at TERRA, one of the things we do is we do consult. We've done, work with, sales development, with marketing training, with several of our clients and customers, and I'm available for that for you as well. So if you'd like to learn more about that, please contact me here. My contact information is on screen. And for those that are listening, it's snapoli@jointerra.org, and my telephone number direct 615-579-5368. I look forward to, watching you all continue your journey. Look forward to helping those that are interested in, getting some support and getting this process started by engaging with TERRA Direct. And I look forward to seeing you all again next month on the third Thursday. You all have a great week, and we'll talk soon.